Good morning and welcome back to Coffee Break. Today we are turning the page to Chapter 3 in our How a Book Becomes a Book series. You loved it.
I did love it. I did. Yes, this is Chapter 3 in How a Book Becomes a Book.
Which we like to just refer to as HaBBaB.
Yeah, that's how we read it in our heads.
We're going to talk about illustrations today. We're going to focus mainly on original titles because with foreign books, as we already mentioned, then we get everything together and finalized. It's just the text that needs to be translated. So.
Right. There's not a whole lot of work to do with illustrations as far as foreign books are concerned.
But there's plenty to do as far as original titles are concerned.
Yeah, Gail really has her work cut out for her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if the author is also the illustrator, then when they send us a manuscript, there's usually some rough sketches accompanying this, or at the very least some illustration notes, so we kind of see how the book is paced out and what the author/illustrator has in mind.
So what if the author is not the illustrator? Do they normally come to us with an illustrator, or?
I mean, sometimes they'll have suggestions of like illustrators that they admire, and then we'll take those thoughts into consideration, but no, usually it's our department that finds the illustrator and approaches them for the work. And really, this is all mostly Gail's brainchild.
Right.
Gail is our art director / wizard / ninja. She's amazing. She spends time with the text, internalizes it, and then she gets to work. She looks at libraries and bookstores, she visits galleries, she looks through illustrators' samples that they send to us and everything. So she really does her homework, and she puts together a list of different styles that she thinks could work well with the manuscript. But a good example of this is actually a book that came out last year, Brother Hugo and the Bear. Do we have that somewhere?
I believe we do.
Perfect. So Brother Hugo and the Bear, we got this text in and we just loved it. And the book itself is about it's got a medieval setting, it's about bookmaking and illuminated manuscripts, so we really wanted to convey that with the artwork. So Gail found us Steve Schindler, who had done a lot of books in historical settings, and actually he had one set in a castle. And that was kind of the one where we were like, oh, we really like this, and this is similar to what we would be asking for him to do for us. So why don't we approach him? Once we have an illustrator, then Gail meets with them, sits down and talks with them, and gets a schedule lined out for the book. Every artist is different, and depending on the artist, their process, the medium they use, timing, it's kind of however much time they need. And we want to make sure that we make the schedule as flexible as we can for them, really work with their process and make things as easy for them as possible.
So what goes on the schedule?
Oh, well, the first step is for the artist to create rough sketches, and those, they're basically just giving us an idea of how they envision the book being laid out. We kind of let them play with the pacing of the book, so we can see what they're envisioning, how fast it's going. And based on that, because the rough sketches are the first time we get to see the illustrations and the words come together. And so usually it's like, okay, adjustments need to be made. And so, yeah, we're usually going back and we're like, okay, well, now this description is redundant because we have this scene, showing it. And then okay, we need to pick up the pacing here, smooth things out over here. So yeah, we all sit down as a department and go over the rough sketches and just kind of see what's working, what isn't, and then we go back to both the author and the illustrator with our notes, and then they get us revised sections for the dummy. That's the revision. That's kind of the middle stage between rough sketches and the final art. So yeah, we make notes on the dummy, and then based on that, the illustrator creates the final art for the book.
Which is clearly the most fun part.
It really is. Just seeing the original artwork, we lay it all across the room and we just walk around like a museum and look at each piece individually.
I mean, that is my favorite part of when we have sales conference and Gail brings in these incredible works of art.
The final artwork is always just everyone's favorite part. It's just And it's the first time you really see the book, like how it's going to be as the finished product. And so it's a really great moment of like, wow, this is really happening, you know, it's full steam ahead kind of thing. So it's just a great morale booster. I love the final artwork.
So what happens after we get the final artwork?
Then the proofing starts. Yay! We're going to cover that in a later chapter. Yeah, by the time we get the final artwork, most of the work with the illustrations is done.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll have, you know, tweaks and everything that we have to make and everything, but yeah, once the final art is in, that's a lot off the illustrator's plate. Yeah, Steve did a really great job of like complementing the text, and that's what the best illustrations do. They contribute their own meaning and their own like strengths to the text.
I mean, I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that, you know, sure, an author writes the text and they do so much incredible work, but they're only half of the book. You know, the illustrator, they're not just trying to decorate these words, you know, they're trying to bring the story to life.
Yeah, yeah, and the best ones do. Yeah, it's really awesome to see it all happen.
So illustrations are pretty much the coolest.
We love them. So if you have any questions about illustrations that I didn't cover, leave a comment or stay tuned for my blog post because I'll be covering that.
Coffee Break Confidential starts tomorrow on Earthlings.
Oh my gosh. I'm not nervous. I'm excited.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Schedule.
You should say schedule.
Schedule. No.